Hi there, good evening and welcome to your Sunday show for Sunday the 7th of December 2025. This is the Four Lads Had a Dream podcast network. My name's Scott Patterson. If you're joining us on YouTube or X/Twitter or Facebook, we're grateful for your time tonight. I should say that we've got loads to speak about tonight. Yesterday was a busy Saturday night. In Ayrshire, so we've got lots to speak about tonight. Before I do go into that, I want to say hi to our show sponsor, the local darts shop, are looking after us for the course of the season. All your darts and accessories available at allthews.localdartshop.co.uk, available for installations in your pubs, clubs, at home and your function areas. They are indeed the local dart shop, keeping you on target. If you are into your arrows, I suggest you get in touch with these guys. We shouldn't miss out our pod partners for the season as well, of course. Black Rooster, CSD Air Conditioning, Rhino Express, Clydeview Joinery, Athlon Industrial Solutions, our good friends at Candid, and also Art of Gold. Full squad tonight. Rob, how's it going? Get yourself
good,
up.
Thank you, mate. Don't worry, mate. I was struggling there. It's been a while, you know. Good, mate. Nice chilled day today. Putting up the tree. I wasn't expecting that. I was hoping it was going to be done when I was out last night, but it wasn't to be. So yeah, in the Christmas mood now, mate. In the Christmas mood.
Absolutely, and I'm glad to hear it as well. Doogie, how's it going, buddy? You all right?
Yeah, I'm great. It's been a beautiful Sunday, Scott.
And Cheryl, always good to have you on. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I had a lovely night out in Kilmarnock last night, and obviously a lovely, like you say, a beautiful Sunday. So yeah, glad to be with you.
So if you are watching and want to get involved in the chit chat tonight, you're more than welcome to do that. If your comment makes sense and is relevant, we will be sure to share it. If it's abuse and Doogie, there's a good chance we'll share it too. So listen. Historically, I think travelling down to Kilmarnock is always a game where you think, oh, I don't know how I feel about that. Tough or lack of tough, rather. The trip itself can be a little bit troublesome. I think it's fair to say, Rob, we obviously knew that this would move to a Saturday night at the ridiculous time of 8 p.m. in the evening, where we would probably rather be doing something else on a Saturday night at that time as opposed to watching our team, particularly this season, by the way. Interested to know your thoughts en route to the game, and you hear that Tav is not starting. Mass panic. We can't play with James Tavernier. Thank goodness he's on the bench in case we need him.
It was definitely an interesting one. So I was at an event last night, so I wasn't keeping us up to date with the football team news and stuff as I usually would have been. But when we saw the team sheet come through, that was the one that jumped out. I thought it was interesting given the lack of form that Aaron's has kind of been shown as well on that left hand side. So it was a surprise that Tav was dropping out, but ultimately we've got a squad and we've got to use it. And I think Magoma had to come back in on that left hand side to give us the natural width there because we've missed it. You know, ultimately playing a right footer on that left hand side screws up the balance of the team, unfortunately. And it means that your kind of attacking left back is continually cutting back in the right hand side. So, you know, I wasn't surprised to see Magoma on the left, but it was a bit of a surprise to see Aaron's on the right hand side. But in saying that, and we'll talk about it, I guess, a wee bit as we go into the game, I thought he actually did not too bad for a bit of a change. You know, he seemed to be freed up a little bit on that right hand side and was a bit more attacking minded. So you've got to trust the manager in these situations. Ultimately, he's the guy that's seen players day in, day out. And Tav's an important player for us, regardless of what people think. He still pops up in big moments. He still, you know, can contribute to the team. But we've all said his time needs to be managed and he needs to start minimising his minutes so that he's fresher and also so that we can actually see if we can find the right back that can come into the team and start to replace him.
Yeah. Rob, see on that, I was going to make that exact same point about he needs his minutes managed. He's 34 years old. The problem that we've got just now with Tav is that over-reliance. We've played him too many times, too many minutes this season, and actually his form suffered as a consequence. We've had to bring him out. And the only kind of comment I would make about the minutes is if I was choosing a game to manage his minutes, it would have probably been Falkirk at home to take him out, have Aaron start. the fact that he started Falkirk, he started Dundee United, he had to be sacrificed during a Dundee United game for Aarons because he wasn't having a great game. Bit of background noise there. So I think the manager needs to learn as to when to use that minutes. Tough place to go, Rugby Park, as you mentioned, Scott. The surface isn't great, as Barron will tell you now. It's probably a game that I'd prefer that we start and sacrifice against Falkirk. But you know what? I think the point's well made about Aarons. He had a good game.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, and like I think many of us, I don't think we've been largely impressed with Aarons. However, I did think he was. I thought it was pretty handy yesterday from what I saw. Cheryl. I think so we're seeing a lot of different bits and pieces on Tav recently. I don't want to get into the whole he splits opinion, etc., because we all know where everyone's individual sort of thought process is on Tavernier. I don't think he's in a particularly great vein of form now, and maybe taking him out was quite a smart idea, if you like, with big games coming up in December's chock-a-block, so we are going to need him to be available and ready to go. I actually thought it was decent management from Danny Rohls, sort of sitting him on the bench and giving Aarons some game time.
Yeah, and do you know what? I'm still not over the fact that Dougie and I agreed on it on the post-match on Wednesday, but he was really, really poor at Tannadice, and I believe he was ill during the week as well, wasn't he? Or that was the reason that was given for it. But I think it did no harm whatsoever. But like you guys, I was concerned when I seen Aarons in his place because he's so backwards with the ball as well. But I thought he looked decent last night, and he tried to drive things forward a wee bit more as well. I have to say the massive relief for me was that Asgard was nowhere near that team.
Aye, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think we all kind of feel like that a little bit. He's one of these guys at the moment who doesn't split opinion in the same way that maybe James Tavernier has. So listen, tonight we're going to speak about, as I say, we've got Miovski, a couple of bits and pieces we want to do about him. Mikey Moore is back and in the fold, looks unshackled when he plays that sort of free role, if you like, sort of not quite centre mid and not quite up front, that 10 role, if you like. And I hate speaking about numbers. If you've watched the podcast for a long time, you know I hate referring to players and their numbers. Conor Barron, I thought, was excellent yesterday. We'll speak about him. We also need to speak about Fernandez. We will do a bit about the refereeing last night as well, which I thought was questionable for both sides. And I think we need to be quite clear on that. Dougie, Miovski. I think when we brought in Miovski, everyone hoped and prayed we were seeing the guy that we knew was such a hit in the Northeast at Aberdeen. We haven't particularly seen it since he came in. He took his 2 goals yesterday really, really well. Exactly what you'd expect from a Bojan Miovski of 2-3 years ago when he was up the road.
I like these 2 goals. It's the kind of goals you want your striker to be scoring. Very much instinctive, composed. Shows what you can do when he's in the penalty box, and I think that's the difference, Scott.
Yep.
You know, if you go back to Falkirk, we created less than 1 XG, and I hate to talk about stats because I'm not one of these guys that throws stats out. I'm more a kind of meeting the eye test. But Falkirk, we didn't create a lot of chances, and that's been a bit of a story of our season. When you've got a penalty box striker, it's very difficult for him to shine in that system because he needs to have chances in and around the box. It's no surprise that since Falkirk in the Dundee United game, and then obviously he's got his 2 goals against Kelly, we've created chances that makes him look a better player. Yeah. And it's purely, and I don't say it's purely down to system, because I believe the manager said some complimentary things about Miovski in terms of working with him and what he can do differently. And it is about link-up play. That's the bit that's kind of needing worked on with Miovski. It really suited him at Rugby Park because it was the kind of game where he's in and around the box and poaching as such. My criticism of Miovski this season, where I thought Shamiti would be more suited to the system, is just that hold-up play, the link-up play. Shamiti's obviously big, he's strong. Miovski so far hasn't been terribly effective at his hold-up play. There's games that do pass him by when the ball's not up that side of the pitch. But hopefully, the manager's seen a little bit of light since Falkirk. You know, Cheryl and I were on the pod after Dundee United, and it wasn't a brilliant game, but I think what was positive about the Dundee United game is we actually started to create chances. And I hope that the manager has seen that to get the best out of certain players and to get results in Scottish football, you need to lift the handbrake a little bit. And I think if we do that, it's going to suit Miovski more than anyone else in this squad.
Yeah. Cheryl, Drew Ross, 2009, who's watching on YouTube tonight, thanks for that, we appreciate it. Real striker goals from Miovski at last. And that was the thing. So I'm also not any stats at all. However, what I have done is I've clocked today that Miovski had 3 shots from 5 touches inside the opposition box today, and 2 of them were goals. And interestingly enough, when we speak about things like XG, there's a really interesting stat which emphasises how clinical we were, and particularly Miovski was last night. Both teams had an XG of 0.74 yesterday, and we scored 3 goals. And Kilmarnock obviously never got one on the evening. So the difference in clinicality is huge there, but we're seeing bits from Miovski, or we saw bits last night rather, that maybe gives us something to be happy about.
Yeah, because am I right in thinking the last time he scored was actually Falkirk away when Martin got the sack? Is that right?
I think it was, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that was the last time he scored. That was September, October time. I think, as ridiculous as it probably sounds, that first goal gave him the confidence for the second goal. You could see that he got a massive lift from it. Because I think, like Dougie says, when he first came in, when he was announced, we thought, brilliant, a player that knows the league. We've seen him play pretty well for Aberdeen, but his all-round play at Aberdeen was better as well. He bullied players, he contributed off the ball, but we haven't really seen any of that. But maybe this is the wee springboard that he needs. He's taken his 2 goals, he's got his chance, and he pushes on from there.
Cheryl, see that point about getting his chance and the confidence that he got from scoring his goal? We need to play him now. See who else he's got those goals. We need to keep playing him. A game on Thursday night, Miovski starts, and he now holds the jersey. And nobody in that striker position this season has earned the right to command the jersey. Hopefully, this is Miovski saying, right, this is my jersey, and if Danilo or Sharmiti want it, you've got to fight for it. And when you've got genuine competition for a place in the team, that's when you get the best out of players.
Yeah, no,
I think the other point that can't be missed either is the role the manager plays in it. He obviously spoke. I think it was, I don't know if it was pre or post match, about the conversations that he's having with the players and telling them what his expectations are, where they need to be. So I think we get hung up on the negative sometimes with a result at Falkirk and Dundee United, but we seem to forget that he's having very little time to play or to work on things with these players at the moment. So he's trying to communicate these things as effectively as they can, and if that's the type of improvement he can have in these players without really having a lot of time in the grass, then it points to positive signs for the future, to be honest. And I know we'll speak about the manager in a wee bit, but we can't underestimate the fact that he seems to be a good communicator. He seems to be having conversations quite regularly with the players about his expectations on what they need to do to get in the team and cement their place in the team. And I guess for a player, as long as he's you do the work that's required and get yourself into that team and continue to do what he wants, then you know that you're going to have that jersey for a long time.
Yeah, no, I agree. John Witherspoon, 6-7-7-1, play Miovski in that box and get him service, and he will deliver it. And listen, the key thing about that is the middle sentence, getting him service. We know from the stats, go back to stats, we know from the bits and pieces we've heard and read on this podcast and varying other forums, the service to whoever it is that's playing up front. And you don't want to get involved about whether it's Chermiti or Danilo or Miovski. If the service is non-existent or the service is poor, our strikers just aren't going to score goals. David Gray, who's watching on Facebook, brought up the fact, again, he didn't play a lot last year. I think Miovski said that as much post-match. And his fitness up until now hasn't really been at a level that he wants it to be. Hopefully it's onward and upward from here. We are the people. Couldn't agree more. One of the things that came out post-match, Rob, and I'll stick with you on this because I think it's quite interesting. If I can do a quick sort of comparison to the previous manager, I'm not entirely sure many of the players within the squad would have approached the previous manager to say that they weren't happy about getting game time. And approachability, I think, generally for leaders is super important. You should be able to go to your leader in any line of work and say, why is this happening? it's maybe different in football to a degree because you can't go and sort of bang your fist up and down on the desk and say, why am I not getting a chance? But it sounds like Miovski's went to Danny Rohls and maybe voiced some frustration he's got, and they've had a conversation and moved on from it. Not too dissimilar to what Manny Fernandez spoke about a week or so ago. The approachability of Danny Rohls, I think, is going to be really important in and around this current batch of players between now and particularly January. But I think he's also going to get an idea of how many he can properly trust from January onwards based on their reaction to conversations they have.
Absolutely, it's the only thing he can really judge them on just now. You know, he's got to give everybody an opportunity, and he said that when he came into the job. And I think the biggest bit of praise that we can do is probably comparing both records of Martin as manager and Danny Rohls as manager. You know, both have played 7 games. Rohls won 5, we've drawn 2, scored 14, conceded 4. Martin 1 win, 5 draws, 1 defeat, 6 scored, and 7 conceded. So we've doubled the amount of goals in the team under his stewardship so far, and we've halved the number of goals conceded. And I think that does to talk to the fact that players are probably trying a bit more for him because they probably put a bit of trust in him and know that if I do certain things, then I'm going to have a fair crack of staying in this team. Whereas there was a real air of arrogance and I know best from the previous manager, which people just don't react to. I think we've all worked for a boss where you thought he's a complete arsehole or they're a complete arsehole, and you're not going to try as much as you would do for somebody that you get behind, you believe in, and believe that they can help you grow. It's going to be the same as a football player. If they don't think that they're going to be able to improve under a manager, I would imagine that they would, almost switch off a little bit and say, well, sod you, I'm just going to go and do my own thing. And we've seen a few players begin to uptick a little bit. I mean, I think Raskin is starting to look a little bit more like the player that we saw last year. Barron's getting back to some really good form. Mikey Moore, since Rohls come in, has looked a completely different player by moving him inside and playing him in that central position. So there's a lot to be said about having a manager that's approachable and you can have a conversation with. But equally, if he tells you, oh shit, you're not getting in the team, you've just got to suck it up and put the effort in training. But I think it'll be interesting to see how it does pan out over the next few weeks, because I think there's a few players that will be conspicuous by their absence given some of the comments that he's made, and hopefully that might be the beginning, the end of a few careers at Ibrox for some of them.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Rob stole my glory there by taking my stats that I had noted down. But do you know, see what the manager deserves praise? Do you know what else is very telling right now? The players want to play. Whether it's because of the man management, they want to play for Danny Rohls, or they want to be contributing right now to the club. The World Cup could be a huge factor as well. A lot of these guys are playing to get into World Cup squads. It's really encouraging to hear behind the scenes guys like Manny Fernandez, Bojan Miovski, they're banging the door down. They're saying that they want to be playing, and I think that's a really stark contrast. You seen under Russell Martin, it looked like guys couldn't give a toss whether they were on the pitch or not. And the last point on that is, like you mentioned there around, it'll be interesting to see who's getting minutes and who's not getting minutes. Ever since Falkirk, Telo Asgard came on as a 90-minute sub against Dundee United. I think we get 5 minutes of injury time. He didn't come on, I'm sure, against Kelly. So he's had 5 minutes in the last 180. I think that's telling right now as to the type of player that this manager wants to pick. He wants to play the guys that are fighting for the jersey.
Yeah. Do you know what I thought was brilliant was when he brought Curtis on yesterday, when Bayrami went off, because my worry was that he was going to bring Asgard on, and I think that was 100% the right move. To me, I don't know what you guys think, Curtis looked like somebody that had been injured in the international break and not played for a long time, but I would absolutely bet my mortgage on him contributing more than Asgard would have done yesterday.
So, Shera, so I'm going to stay with you because Brian, who's watching on Facebook, brings up a really good. What's your take on putting Curtis on and then taking him off shortly towards the end of the match? I mean, I have no idea if he was injured,
I didn't have a problem with it, and I tell you why. He's not played a great deal of football.
Yeah.
So for me, that was the reason, and I get why people think it was really poor to sub a sub, but he came on relatively early. I think it was 21 minutes, and for somebody who'd not played a lot of football, I didn't have a huge problem, but I understand why people think it maybe wasn't a great look. But for me, I just put it down to the fact that he hadn't played for a long time, and also was injured a few weeks ago as well.
And Cheryl, I'm going to stay with you because one person who we've spoke about before, and given him pelters, to be perfectly honest with you, here on the Sunday show, and we've done it.
Which one?
I know, but more recently we've spoke about Mikey Moore and how he I don't want to say hasn't stepped up, but there's times where you're just, for someone who has arrived in such a blaze of glory and is so highly rated down south, you expect him, you almost unfairly expect him to hit the ground running. Young guy, don't care. He should be able to absolutely mix it with the best of them, and he should instantly become a really important player for us. Hasn't looked that way. Looked really good when he came off the bench yesterday, I thought.
Yeah. Do you know what, though? I don't know if it was Rob that made the point. It was Russell Martin using him in the wrong place, keeping him out on the wing. It wasn't working there. I remember the Hearts game at home. He was awful. And I remember he got taken off, and quite rightly so at the time, because he was really, really poor. But he's freed him up. He's got him through the middle, and he just looked like a different player. He looked so confident when he came on yesterday. Yep. And I think his second goal should have stood as well. What was lovely is that obviously we were there. We moved down the front at the end, and when everybody was singing for him, he genuinely looked taken aback that the fans were singing for him, and looked quite embarrassed. But it was brilliant. I thought he was excellent. He just plays without any fear now, doesn't he? He's desperate to get involved. If you think he's been out for quite a while, but came on and was absolutely up for it, got the 2 goals. I thought it was excellent.
Scott, I think it's... Sorry, mate. See the point of singing his name and the joy that he had from singing his name? For a lot of these players, they've only known negativity. You know, they came in the summer, they've been through the Russell Martin period. I mean, we're 4th in the league, right? And we're on an upward trajectory right now, but it's a bad season. It's been a terrible season. So these guys don't know what it's like to be in a positive environment. And, you know, when the fans are singing his name, he's probably taken aback by that, in terms of they can actually now see, because he's got real talent, right? And I was one of the ones that was really critical of Mikey Moore at the beginning. I didn't understand why we were allowing a 17-year-old. And when he came into a team, he looked like a 17-year-old. Yeah. Mikey Moore is growing into a Rangers jersey. And I think you're right, Cheryl. I think a large part of that is how the manager's using him. And for, you know, people have been talking about Danny Rohls and whether he's the right manager for the club or whether he's going to be here long term or not. The manager deserves real credit for how he's managing guys like Mikey Moore. And Mikey Moore's not the only player who you can actually visibly see is improving right now under the current manager.
Yeah, Rob, I was going to say it was just a point as well. I think the difference is that we've got a manager that is encouraging creativity and not trying to coach the creativity out of them, which was part of the problem with the previous regime. I think Mikey Moore has come in and will continue to get better, I think, because once he's back fitter, we'll start to see more. Sorry, Scotty.
That's okay. So the thing, and I'll stay with you, Rob, because one of the things that I really like about Moore is, and I think we've seen it quite a lot with guys that are playing in that space that I spoke about earlier on. I loathe to say the 10, but you know what I'm talking about. I think too often we've had guys that will shuffle to the left with the ball, shuffle to the right with the ball, and not almost take a bit of responsibility for the goal that Moore had. It was all about just progressing, advance, and before you know it, he's in the box, and it's a lovely wee finish beyond the sort of Kilmarnock goalkeeper. But there was almost an aggression about him when he came on, Rob, that I was really impressed with, and I don't think we see it with anyone else that we deploy in that 10 role, that aggression, that freedom to play, if you like. I was really impressed with him yesterday. I think there's a good chance he could find himself in that position until May, when he goes back down the road, if he maintains performance.
Absolutely. I think you listen to what the manager said about him playing inside rather than out wide. You know, in there he's more involved in the play. The other thing that we've got to give him a little bit of credit for as well, where we talk about the creativity they want to drive forward, he's not scared to work his backside off either. You know, you think of the amount of times that you see him tracking back and, you know, being a bit of a pest. And this is where it gets so frustrating when you've got a player like Asgard, who is a much more physically imposing player, has got the little bits of skill and stuff that he can do, but his attitude is so lackadaisical that you give the frame that he's got to Mikey Moore, and you look at the way he rolled the Kilmarnock player to kind of set up his goal. Asgard's not doing that a million years. He's probably going to fall down and look for a free kick. But it's just that drive and wanting to engage players and take them on, and that's what we've needed for the last few games, and hopefully we'll begin to see more from Gasman on the right, and Barami as well. Ultimately he's surprising me a little bit with the way that he's started to play in a blue jersey again. And I know Dougie, he's maybe no Rangers class, all that sort of stuff, but while he's contributing to the team, then it's a nice sight to see.
No, I think that's quite fair. Cheryl, it's almost like a four lads version of ref watch. Butland should have the yellow card, I think, last night, and Diomande gave away a pen that was never awarded as a pen. Let's be honest.
Yeah, listen, I thought so. I thought so straight away. And it's like we say, sometimes it's a whole Scotland-wide problem, but of course there'll be the focus on it. But we always call it out. We see it for what it is. We don't pretend that it wasn't. It was a poor decision. They looked at it, didn't they? I don't know the reason that they didn't give it. What infuriates me more is how many times is Diomande going to do this?
Yeah.
We've seen him get sent off. Was it Genk and Braga?
Yep.
He was sent off twice, and he's just such a liability. Those stupid, it's needless. I think it was the Genk one in particular, just a completely needless red card. And it's just the same daft mistakes as somebody's saying there as well, time and time again. It just overall does not contribute enough for me. And particularly with that side of his game as well, he's not learning his lesson.
Dougie, I know you're a huge fan of Mo Diomande. Westall18 jumps into the YouTube chat. Need a replacement for Dio, makes too many mistakes, and I think there have been rather moments where we do see him just almost taking his eye off the ball a little bit. Is that a concern for you?
I think Diomande's a kind of player, probably a bit similar to Glenn Kamara. There's the kind of phrase "spider in the hole" or whatever it's called, "spider on the web," is it? Something like that.
Is it spider in the hole?
It's spider on the web. Right. So it's basically right. So what it is you're in that hole where your job is basically to just link up play. You don't do the clever things. You get the ball from defence and you just pass it on to somebody who's more creative than you. Glenn Kamara did it very, very well for Steven Gerrard. I think that's what Diomande should have been for us now. The problem is everybody else around about him is just not that very good. When Kamara was in that Steven Gerrard team, we had an effective team. I think Diomande really suffers from not having a successful team around him. I think he'd have looked a lot better in a better quality team. With that in mind, though, there's no excusing some of his individual brain farts that he has. Diomande's a good player, but he just lacks concentration sometimes, and he does the stupid thing. And you can question whether it's a penalty or is it not a penalty, because you see pulls all the time. You can question the Braga sending off. Is it a red card? Is it not? He's going for the ball. He's not exactly leading with his elbow. But he puts himself in these situations by just not always thinking things through. And he needs to get smarter. And going back to a point earlier on about Danny Rohls, I think Danny Rohls coaching players just now in terms of what they should and shouldn't be doing, and I imagine he's having a word in Diomande's ear. Just when we're talking about Diomande, we were kind of touching on the Curtis substitution earlier on, and I was going to mention about Diomande's sub as well. It wasn't until tonight when I was having a conversation with my dad that I kind of understood the subs. You'll have known in the chat, when Diomande came off, I was a bit surprised that Danilo went on for him, because at that point we were winning 2-0. We had started to lose the momentum in the game. Kelly were starting to come into it, and we took a centre mid off and we put a centre forward on. And I just did not understand it at all. And actually, 5 minutes or so later, we changed it again by putting on Tav, going kind of more five at the back. That's when we brought on Moore as well. What my dad said to me earlier on is the manager's still trying to work out systems. What's the best team to play? What's the best system to play? Especially with the game on Thursday night. The manager's looked at it and tried 4-4-2 for that point, realised it's not working, and he's then changed it and he's kind of gone 5-3-2. I think what the manager's doing there is not necessarily thinking about the Kelly game and what's the best way to see the Kelly game out. I think the manager's trying to keep an eye on, right, what's the best system to play going forward, with one eye on Thursday, with Diomande in particular being missing. It wouldn't surprise me if we go similar with Tav at right centre back, with Aarons at right back, and Magoma at left back. I think that's what he was doing with the subs, and I think that's why Diomande went off at that time as well.
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me that he's sort of looking ahead to Europe becomes a bit of a sideshow. Let's be honest, because it's just been a shambles this season. It's been a long time since we've kind of thought that, but we could probably do without the game on Thursday. To be perfectly honest with you, I'd love another league game midweek. To be perfectly frank, because things feel like there's a bit of a change on type thing. That I think that's quite fair. When we speak about Diomande, it brings us quite nicely into the midfield area, Rob. And so long we spoke about Raskin and Diomande being right in there. Dougie, I'm not going to mention Asgard, and I'm certainly not mentioning the three of them together for our own sanity. But Connor Barron is in a really rich vein of form just now. I appreciate he made the dodgy pass back, which led to the Butland incident. However, I saw some bits and pieces online today, and it was his heat map, and it was like the sort of traditional just red goat on a pitch, because he was so good yesterday. We do need him to maintain that moving forward, of course we do.
We do, absolutely. And, again, there's nothing wrong with being a wee man. As long as you can perform on the pitch, then, it makes up for your lack of size, to be honest. But he was he was great. And I think the thing that typified it was the chance that he cleared off the line. Full sprint on back, makes the tackle to get it away. But it was the same last year. We loved Barron in the midfield because of how hard he works, and he does all the dirty stuff that you really want your players to be able to do. I think that the one thing that we're starting to see is a little bit more quality when it comes to his use of the ball, which is really pleasing to see. Some of the times he's switching it, and we didn't think he had that in him, but he's been really good. And I think an example to some of the Scottish players that we've got, the likes of Finlay Curtis and wee Lyle Cameron, because ultimately we want to see more of them in the team, because they know what it means to play for the club, and they'll give you that wee bit extra because of that. I think he's really important in there, and hopefully he can continue that form, because it'll free up Raskin and the other midfielders that are in there with him, because they know they've got the safety net of him sitting behind them. And ultimately you want to have Raskin maybe playing a little bit further up. And going back to what you were saying on Dio Dougie, at North Allen, I think he was an 8, so he's used to playing more in that attacking third rather than it being the defensive midfielder that we sometimes ask him to play. The one thing he's going to have to do is really step it up, because ultimately there's going to be players breathing down his neck to take his place. If he doesn't, he's going to go to AFCON, and he's probably going to have a really difficult task to get back into that team if we're playing well and we're continuing to get results, because he'll have been away for a month.
Scott, see, I was chatting to my mate Scott earlier on, and he'd mentioned about Connor Barron's form and saying, that's the kind of form that starts to get you noticed and potentially you can make profit from him. And I kind of reacted to it by saying, so many times we talk about, and I know it's the model from the ownership and stuff, right, about having players doing well, rising their value, and then you sell them on. Why can someone like Connor Barron not become that Rangers linchpin? Somebody who we develop, he's Scottish, he's homegrown, that he develops so much that actually you don't sell him. A bit like what Celtic have done historically with Scott Brown, Callum McGregor. You have somebody in the middle of the pack that actually you go, do you know what, you're our number 6, you're our central midfield player. He's a future captain if he carries this on, because he handles himself very well both on and off the pitch. And rather than talking about values and selling players on, I actually want to talk about having guys that add value on the pitch and actually can contribute, not just this season but in the future as well. I can see Connor Barron, if we don't get a silly bid in the future, being a Rangers player for a number of years.
Well,
just to pick up on that again, it's a bit weird agreeing with Dougie 2 pods in a row. One of the things that we've all been moaning about, I think all season and most of last season as well, was the lack of leadership. But he really is coming into his own in terms of being a leader on the pitch. Yesterday, sorry.
So I completely agree with you both. And again, highly uncomfortable with agreeing with Dougie. But his main thing will always be his consistency. It's always going to be that. And I think one thing that we've seen, and while I appreciate he's in a decent vein of form just now, we have seen periods of inconsistency with him in and around the team. I think that's quite fair to say. The reality is, however, he's not alone. And what has been an absolute bin fire of the season, the midfield has been an area that has been under lots of focus because the players that are in there. And I think that I think his consistency will be key. And as I say, I agree with you. I think he is someone that you can build upon, make better, etc. But he has a huge part to play in that. A couple of the comments have arrived in the chat. Nicholas Barron is the heavyweight in midfield, despite being the smallest, which I think is quite fair to say. And Scott Carney also jumps in, and I'll just share this one on screen. Cheryl, you were here or there last night, so I'd be curious to know if you agree with Scott in this instance. Barron was his man of the match last night.
Yeah, I think so. But you know what? Again, as well, for me, Butland as well, I think was a good shout. I think he kept us in it at times.
Yeah.
But and actually Butland and Connor Barron, because you had that, I think it was the first shot of the game was actually Kilmarnock's when there was a ball through the middle, and Butland got to it, but actually it was Barron on the line and we were right behind the goals and he's running and you know he's going to make it, but at the last minute he kind of adjusts his body slightly and you're all shouting like, just get rid of it, and he did. He absolutely dealt with it, because see, to be honest guys, if that goal goes in at that point, I think we're looking at a completely different game.
That's absolutely right. Yeah.
I agree. Barron, Butland's a shout as well, and he wasn't on for very long. But Mikey Moore as well, just for his impact when he came on.
And listen, all of that's absolutely fair. I do want to. I feel like I'm kind of working my way back up the team. We've done Miovski, we've done Moore, we've done Barron. Rob, speak to me, and Andrew just jumps right into the chat at precisely the right time, because I do want to speak about Manny Fernandez. We know the outlay on him in the summer was huge, not his issue. The previous regime wanted him, which was great. Couldn't get a look in initially, let's be brutally on it, like nowhere near it for whatever reason. I think you can now begin to whisper that he's beginning to look okay.
Don't jinx it, Scotty. Don't jinx it. But no, I mean, I think since coming back into the team, you can start to at least see why we've invested in him. You know, he is a big lumpy a boy. So, you know, when you're talking about physicality in that back line, he certainly adds it. The one thing that I've been really impressed with is just his general attitude, I think, is that, you know, the fact that he was quite happy to go knocking a new manager's door and say, right, you're just in, but I want to be playing. And he's actually backed it up. I think the challenging thing at the moment is that, he's coming into the team alongside a partner who maybe isn't the most confident. And again, you probably see more development in him when he's got a more experienced head sitting next to him that can talk him through a game. Whereas at the moment, it looks like he's the one that's actually having to do it to Jigger, rather than the opposite way about. And I think he seems to have a really good turn of pace. Obviously, massive asset in the air. And I think if we can start to actually work on getting a good delivery, then some of these set pieces will start to pay off, and you'll probably start to see him score a few more goals. But it is also the fact that I think his use of the ball is getting a little bit better. Still, for me, gives me a few heart attacks when he's doing a wee turn with a defender chasing him down, and it's just him and Butland that are there. But it's the modern game, and that's what you're going to get for your defenders. But he seems to be growing into the team really, really well. And touch wood, the development continues, because if he can keep going at the pace that he's going at, then we could have a decent player in our hands. Now, I'll caveat that with until his next bomb scare, and then we want him at the team and he should never be back in it again. But I think it's interesting just to see coming from nowhere, all of a sudden seeing the type of player that he potentially can be. And again, I think it really helps when he's got a more naturally left-sided player playing on that left-hand side, rather than it being somebody like Aaron's, who's then trying to cut back in all the time. So balance is key there. But having a good, experienced centre-half next to him, I think will help him come on leaps and bounds.
Sugi, Big D for Kelly makes a really good point, and it's one of the things that I've been really impressed with the fella is he is quite composed and confident when he has the ball at his feet. I'm a great believer that your defenders ultimately are there to defend. I don't want to know how clever they are with the ball at their feet, because that's the reason you've got all these guys in front of you. It helps that they can, of course, be quite smart with the ball at their feet, and I think a lot of these players have been introduced to a way of playing football this season where they have had to be. But there's no doubt, watching him, he's really quite a confident big fella, isn't he?
There's shades of Bagheera sometimes when he brings the ball out from the back. And do you know, I tell you something, see when a defender comes out, it throws the opposition, because teams are set up to know where their zone is, who their man is to look after when they're in the zone. When a centre-back kind of pushes through, players don't know whether to come or go, and when they have to go, they're leaving the space somewhere else as well, that Fernandes can then pick it to the player that should be in that space. So I think it's a great quality to have. I'm going to say something slightly negative, but with a positive at the end of it about Fernandes, because just going back to Dundee United, he didn't cover himself in glory for the opening goal up in Tannadice, and he kind of jogged back. That's the downside of the composure. The composure's great on the ball, where he is technically good by the looks of it, the ball at his feet. Composure sometimes defensively means that he's dilly-dallying. And actually, I want to see, to the point about defenders defending, I want to see my defenders win the ball, fight, chase things back, corner Barron with the clearance. That's the effort levels that we need to be seeing. But I mentioned to you on Friday night when we were chatting, Scott, I'd rather have Fernandes in there learning, so that he's the one developing, performing it in the next game as he did against Kilmarnock, than a lone player. Yeah. And, ultimately, the AFCON's coming up on the horizon. Giga's one of the players that should go away. Suter's on his way back from fitness. I expect at that point, that's when Fernandes is going to get a run of games beside somebody more experienced in John Suter. And hopefully he grabs that jersey, that if Giga's not sent back to Wolves and he does come back after AFCON, he's going to have to work really hard to get his jersey back, because hopefully Fernandes continues to develop.
Yeah. No,
just need to hope that Giga has a good run in AFCON and he's away for quite a while.
Do you know, it amazes me how nervous Giga looks when he plays. Your centre half can't be nervous at all in any way. None of your players can be nervous. Of course they can. But for a guy that's played in Red Star Belgrade, where I'm relatively sure, do you know what I mean? Your next door neighbour's a firework 9 times out of 10. It's really hard for me to understand that he just seems so unsure of himself. I mean, I think we stopped short of witnessing a breakdown on the pitch last Thursday when he had that shot.
Raga, aye.
Do you know what I mean?
And the players were going up to him, Scotty. Did you notice that? That kept talking to him and going back to him and talking to him. Aye, yeah.
Cheryl, I'll come to you next, because we've covered all the obvious things for the game at the weekend. We know about results elsewhere over the weekend. Does it feel to you, and Danny Rohls sort of indicated that he felt there was a smidgen of a chance of a title race, and us to be in and around that sort of discussion? How do you feel about that now, knowing how busy December is?
Do you know what? I'm looking at it in 2 ways. I think we're a game closer to January, which was what we all said last month, that we just needed to get ourselves to January, to get ourselves to that transfer window. We would take points over performances, so positive in that sense. I just think our next cup is round the corner. We're never like more than 30 minutes away from a massive fuck up that has us all back here questioning our life choices, what our parents put us through in terms of making us support Rangers. So I am, but I know that positivity comes with a downer that is inevitably on its way, probably Thursday, if not Monday, by about 10:15 or whatever.
Aye. It's quite fair, Rob. I mean, we're undefeated in 10 domestically. Visit to Tynecastle to come this month. And that's sandwiched in between Hibs, Motherwell and St Mirren. 12 points up for grabs. We're getting 9.
No, take 12, mate.
That's the right answer.
I think it's gonna come back to that old cliche, isn't it? And what Danny Rohls kind of said as well. You can only take it one game at a time, and I think that's where we are at this moment in time with a squad of players. I'm one of the most positive people on the planet, and I'm just desperately trying not to think about anything like a title race just because of where we are. I think, you know, the big game for me is Monday night against Hibs at Ibrox. You know, you win that, that's another good 3 points to get in the bag and move on to the game against Hearts then the 21st. And then we should have beaten Hearts at Ibrox if it wasn't for VAR and some dodgy decisions at that point. So we need to return the favour and beat them on their home patch. And if we beat Hearts, then it's straight into Motherwell. So it is literally that, just into the next game and seeing how we can go. And then when we get reinforcements through the door, we can have a wee look and reevaluate it and see how close it is. But let's just say we've turned round Leeds in a shorter space of time. If anybody remembers Helicopter Sunday. So, you know, until it's mathematically impossible, you're never out of a title race. It's now just about the players continuing to build the confidence in themselves to start looking like a team, which they have done since Danny Rohls came in the door. You know, there is a little bit more fight about them. They are playing for each other a little bit more. You know, Cheryl spoke about Barron yesterday on the pitch. You know, he's screaming at Raskin, telling him where to go on the pitch, which is great to see. And that's what we need from the players now. They need to be comfortable holding each other to account on that pitch. And it doesn't matter if you've got an armband. You know, if you're in there and part of that team, it's your responsibility. If your teammate's not doing something, you fucking get on his back and you tell him. And if they continue to build that, then the games will start to take care of themselves. You know, I remember when a game at Ibrox against Hibs would be a formality. We'd beat them and we'd just move on to the next game. A game against Motherwell at Ibrox would be a formality. We'd beat them and we'd move on to the next game. And we need to get back to that, to be honest, because ultimately that's what we've all grown up in. So for me, I would love 12 out of 12, but I'm just focusing on the next 3 points against Hibs. If we can take that, great. It's another one chalked off, and then we go on to the next game.
Doogie, is the thing that's maybe a bit more surprising as much as anything else is that we still consider ourselves in and around. I think we do consider ourselves in and around the discussion. It's obviously early on in the season, of course it is, but because we were such a shambles the beginning of the season under the previous regime, etc., it almost felt when we were having all these draws. I think we've had 8 draws so far domestically this season. When we're having all the draws, you just think at that point, there's no danger we're going to be even part of this discussion, particularly as Hearts begin to progress. And we know that sort of our friends across the city aren't in any great shakes either. It just felt like we weren't going to be part of that conversation. And then all of a sudden, you're thinking, well, hang on a second. We're only 2 games off of them. We still need to play them 3 times in the league. We still play Hearts 3 times again. So all of a sudden, I think the picture and the landscape, without looking overly positive, certainly looks different. Now you've got a guy in who seems to be getting a decent run of results from players that aren't his own. And I think players that many know will have to look for new surroundings come January. It's an interesting time. December's going to be a huge month for Danny Rohls, and whatever happens January onwards. And yeah, I think we're in for a really interesting 6, 7 or 8 weeks, certainly in the new year.
I think if this was last season, we'd be out the title race, because one of the main reasons why there is a title race is because nobody's been great this season. And the thing that gives me hope is nobody other than Celtic, I can't remember which year exactly it was in the 80s, was the last time somebody outside of Glasgow won the Scottish top flight. Do you remember what year it was?
80. The top league, 85.
Was it Aberdeen?
Aye.
We need to phone a friend and get Davy Heard on the phone.
Davy Heard would know the answer to that.
It's Davy Heard you need right now. Well, that gives me a bit of hope, though. Nobody has, outside the Rangers and Celtic, been able to win the league and has that experience at this juncture and get into the rest of the season. So that kind of is the black mark against Hearts, who have had a little bit of inconsistency of late, but they really deserve the result today. Celtic haven't had a great season by any means, and they've just changed their manager, which is a huge risk at any point in the season. Never mind this kind of period of fixtures. And Motherwell, who we're joint with, we've got a game in hand, but Motherwell have played some really good football this season, but potentially don't have the squad to continue. So that's the reason it gives me a wee bit of hope that we've got a manager that understands that nothing else other than winning is what matters. And we just need to keep on picking up the points. We've got a very tough run of games. I'm firmly of the mindset that I couldn't care about Europe right now. I think we're out. It's also just not the most important thing. So Thursday's game is almost a bit of a distraction for me, and I'd be looking at the lineup for that game with one eye on Monday, if I'm honest, because to Rob's point, Monday's the most important game for me. We just need to keep picking up the wins in the league and see where we're at when it comes to the Old Firm game. 3rd of January, I think it is this year, at Celtic Park. And at that point, hopefully we can make some movements in the transfer market. There's already a Norwegian youngster linked to play in the number 6 role, which will come in handy when you've got Diamandi away at AFCON, but he shouldn't be the only one that we should be getting linked with, because there's still areas of this squad that need strengthened. Antman's out for 8 weeks. We don't really have a right winger. Cornelius is probably going to be out for the season. It surprises me that it's not been mentioned that he's returned to his parent club. We still need a centre back, so hopefully we can kind of limp on to January, keep picking up the results, stay in that title race, strengthen the team come January, and give a big push for the rest of the season. Because, to Rob's point, we were dead and buried that year under Alex McLeish when we won the league at Easter Road and the famous helicopter Sunday. So it's not over until the fat lady sings.
So I'm going to end with, I think what we heard there is that we're all going to win the league. I think he's all sort of said that. Looking on the bright side of life, we cannot write off winning the league. A few good players next month, then we go, which I think is quite fair. And we shall see. It's going to be, as I say, 6 to 8 weeks are going to be really interesting, I think, and will absolutely determine how successful our second half of the season is going to be. Doogie, thanks for coming on, buddy. Always good to see you. Well done.
Thanks very much. So I've just seen a comment there from Siege1290 saying stick at 25-8, which I'm assuming is put a bet on Rangers to win the league. I'm going to finish with this bombshell and tell everyone I shoved a tenner on it. You
are shoving a tenner on it, or you have already?
I have.
Oh, I said doom now. Thanks, Dougie.
Fucked it.
It's not your fault. You heard this here first, folks. If we don't win the league now, it's Dougie's fault.
Dougie's fault again.
It's there. Hopefully we all recognise it's there and actually fight for this, because it's not over. Keep believing, as Big Marv said.
Oh, keep believing. Absolutely. Yes, Douglas, thank you. Rob, always good to have you on as well, buddy. Thank you, mate.
Brilliant, appreciate it. Thanks very much. Good to see you all again.
Yes, indeed. And Cheryl, always good to have you on. You're my favourite, as you know, so always nice to have on a Sunday night. Well done.
Lovely. Nice to be back with you. And we're back in 2 weeks, is that right?
Fortnight tonight, we're back on. So join us then we can. And before I send you all off into your Sunday nights, I should say hello to our show sponsor, the local dart shop, looking after us all season. All your darts and all your accessories available at allthews.localdartshop.co.uk. They're available for installations in your homes, pubs, clubs, function rooms. You can reach them. They are your local dart shop, keeping you bang on target, looking after us also for the season. Our pod partners, Black Rooster, CSD Air Conditioning, Rhino Express, Clydeview Joinery, Athlone Industrial Solutions, Candid, and Art of Gold, all helping us between now and hopefully a successful May, maybe. Programming this week, we've obviously got the guys are on Monday night with the flagship taking it into the week. We've got content all week. I think Stevie is heading to Ferencvaros on Thursday, which is just wild. However, I'm sure he's looking forward to that, and it should be quite a good time. We are indeed back in 2 weeks' time for what will be effectively the Santa show. To be honest with you, that'll be our last one, probably of the year, but certainly the last one before Christmas. So we look forward to that. Don't forget, if you're not following us on the social media forums, we're right across there. Facebook and Instagram. Follow us on YouTube. We're also on X. All the usual places at 4 Lads Had a Dream. That will do us for now. We're back in 2 weeks. Thanks for watching. Bye for now. Good night.
The 4 Lads podcast is sponsored by Rhino Express, Clydeview Joinery, Athlone Industrial Solutions Limited, and CSD Air Conditioning, in partnership with Black Rooster and Art of Gold. Thank you for listening to or watching the podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show.